Auburn's quarterback of the future will be in Waco visiting the Bears on Friday, and the seeds for this might have been planted quite a few years ago. Let's get Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by the College Football Playoff. Yep, thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. It's also part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on YouTube, powered by Rogue Media Sports Network. Appreciate all y'all tuning in. We're going to talk today about the big name in the portal in terms of quarterback visiting Baylor. I know those things might not all add up, but we're going to tell you why it makes a bunch of sense. Also, the other positions that Baylor's add through the portal, because they are on fire right now and are one of the top teams in the Big 12 when it comes to the portal rankings. Plus, a look at we might have finally gotten the answer of what exactly turned this team around after the Iowa State game in early October. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. It was not that long ago. It was just about 2 years ago that the Bears were in a real flux when it came to the quarterback position. Blake Shapen was coming off an year in 2022. They were 6-7. The vibes were not good at all. And in this time between the last regular season game and the bowl game, the Novosad debacle happens. And yes, I will say his name. Austin Novosad decommits at the 11th hour, and Baylor, who put all their eggs in the Novosad basket, really had to scramble for a 2024 quarterback because they hadn't really recruited one in 2023. And it came down to what ended up being two of the highest rated quarterbacks in the country that both had Baylor in their final three. And that was, of course, Baylor legacy DJ Lagway at Florida, number one quarterback in the country, and four-star from Little Rock Christian, Walker White, who committed to Auburn. Well, 2 years later, how the turntables? Because it's been a weird kind of portal situation for Auburn. They've had quite a few go in the portal. They don't like the coaching situation. Most of the fans, I should say, don't like the coaching situation there, but they've pulled some big names going to the Plains in return. But one of those names that goes out the door is Walker White. And Auburn fans will tell you they're okay with that. They didn't need him anyway. Now they've got Jackson Arnold. That's what they'll tell you. But in reality, Walker White was the quarterback of the future at Auburn. And to replace him, they went out and got Jackson Arnold, the guy who has plenty of upside, but had a tough season at Oklahoma. This is the guy that they drove Dylan Gabriel out of Norman for. And it didn't go well. Oklahoma had one of the worst offenses in the SEC this year. And they went out and got the kid from Stanford, who is a project, some good potential there, but also a project. Walker White, from what we were hearing, not just from Auburn fans, but from Hugh Freeze towards the end of the season, it sounded like he was getting ready to make 2025 his year at Auburn. Obviously, they had plenty of quarterback troubles this year with Thorne, and it got pretty bad there at times. But this fan base was excited about Walker White. Well, now he's in the portal, and most recently, he has updated it to the fact that he is visiting Baylor tomorrow, Friday, and now On 3 has him as a 100% crystal ball to Baylor. How quickly this happens. This would be a major, major get for the Bears. I know he hasn't played a real meaningful snaps where the game was in doubt in college football, but he would, if he commits, be one of the highest rated high school quarterbacks that Baylor's ever gotten. And you look at that list, it's Jarrett Stidham, and the next is Sawyer Robertson. So you look at that, and it's like almost a mirror image, right? 4-star guy out of high school, highly touted recruit, goes to the SEC, doesn't play much, goes in the portal, and everyone's like, who would want that guy? You know, he hasn't played any. We want some guys who have played some college snaps, and you're just going off potential, and then they come to Baylor. So far, Sawyer Robertson, pretty damn good. Pretty damn good return on investment there. And Walker White could be that next guy. Now, there will be the obvious people saying, like, why would this kid come here where he's not going to start next year? You could have wondered the same thing about Sawyer Robertson, because as many fans, thought that Shapen was awful in 2022. In reality, he wasn't that bad. The team was not great, and he was almost certainly going to be the starter for the next season. Like they had just ran off Gary Bohannon to make sure Shapen would be the starter for 22. Chances are he was going to be the starter for 23. So Sawyer Robertson comes into a situation where he's not going to be the starter year one either. It's worked out well for him. Who's your Heisman frontrunner for next year? A lot of people will say it's Arch Manning. He goes to a place where he can't start year one or even year two. I think it's going to work out okay for him. Walker White, as I said about Isaac Wilson, who was in the portal from Utah, now out of the portal and staying at Utah, just like what I said about him, it's like, look, you can go to one of these group of 5 teams and be a starter tomorrow. And there's plenty of benefits to that, right? I'm not going to denigrate the group of 5 teams. That, especially in the transfer portal era with 3 years of eligibility remaining, that's not a bad option. Or you can spend a year behind one of the great quarterbacks in the country, in Sawyer Robertson, be ready just in case anything happens to him, God forbid, and learn under one of the best quarterback coaches in the country in Jake Spavital. And then come 2026, it's your team. That's the hypothetical for Walker White. And oh yeah, by the way, when that is your time, you're going to have some serious momentum from this offense from the seasons before, be it this past year, 2024 and 2025. It's not a bad look at all if you're Walker White. And to be honest with you guys, I'm surprised that he is taking another visit and is 100% crystal ball to Baylor, because when he was recruited to play for the Bears 2 years ago, that was a different quarterback coach. That was Sean Bell, who was great at getting Baylor hats on the table of some of the best quarterbacks in the country in high school. They didn't commit here, but he developed some pretty good relationships with all of them. Maybe Walker White sees Houston as too far a drop from Auburn, coming off back-to-back losing seasons, if I'm not mistaken, Auburn. But he is not, the Houston traction has not been there, Sean Bell's team. Instead, it's not just Sean Bell, the Baylor connection, it's Baylor. And this would be an excellent poll for the Bears, because for the first time in really a while, you will have kind of this succession plan at quarterback. Now, what it would mean in the short term is, you got Nate Bennett coming in for year 2. You've got Edward Griffin coming into the fold year 1. Chances are, if you get a 4-star and Walker White with 3 years of eligibility out of the portal, one of those guys, if not both, is probably going to leave. But if you're Baylor, you're looking at back-to-back 4-star out of high school quarterbacks and a kid in Edward Griffin whose play towards the end of his senior year almost got him to that 4 stars. You've finally got like a succession plan. You thought you had it with Blake Shapen. It didn't really work out the way you planned. And before that, you did not have it. Charlie Brewer limps to the finish line, and then you're battling between Jacob Zeno, the A&M Aggie Jacob Zeno, and Gary Bohannon. And we didn't know who that guy was going to be until, a week or two before the season. Same thing with this past year. What you would have now with getting Walker White is Sawyer Robertson's team in 25 and Walker White's team in 26. And that is an invaluable thing in college football, to have that succession plan. Now, it is the era of the portal. Things change all the time. There's absolutely scenarios where Walker White or some other big-time recruit quarterback comes in. Sawyer's out for a game or two. He puts up some big numbers, whoever comes in to replace him, and they're in the portal next year. That can happen. But right now, Auburn's quarterback of the future is more likely than not going to be a Baylor Bear by the end of the weekend. Like, I'm sorry, that's funny. that's funny and great for Baylor. This would be a massive pickup for the Bears. While you probably won't see it make a huge impact on the field next year, quarterback depth is something that you can never get enough of. We've looked at all these other positions Baylor needs some depth guys for. That's for like starting positions next year. But with the bad luck and the injuries that Baylor's had at quarterback since Seth Russell, you will take any succession plan you can here. And this would be one heck of a succession plan if you go from Sawyer Robertson to Walker White. He's going to get SEC offers. I mean, there was a list out there of the top 5 places he would go. It was all SEC schools. Obviously, no Baylor. Oklahoma could look for a trade of sorts since Jackson Arnold went to Auburn to get a kid like Walker White. I'm sure OU would be in on that. Missouri is looking in the portal for a quarterback. There will be big-time programs looking for him, but right now, Baylor seems to be the spot, and that would be a great addition to this Bears roster. Already this week, they have added several big-time additions to that roster. Let's get you caught up on who the new Bears are. That's coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, you guys already know about it, okay? It's that time of year. The college football playoff is back. We've now got the 12-team format, so it's going to be certainly bigger and probably better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, this Saturday, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show. That's a lot there. Presented by AT&T at 10 a.m. Central Time, which leads into the first matchup, of course, the Ponies of SMU battling Penn State at 11 a.m. Then Clemson looks to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 3 p.m. Central. Don't miss a moment of the action. By the way, it's an all-Texas high school football matchup at quarterback, Cade Klubnik and Quinn Ewers. Watch the CFP presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. It's been a busy week for these transfer portal Bears. And what a run they've been on. I mean, we talked about Monday, all the guys they had, those 4 players that they had to visit the facility. And so far, at the time of this recording on Wednesday night, they've already had 3 of the 4 commit. Just waiting on Ty Buchanan from Texas Tech. But obviously, we went over it on the show yesterday. Phoenix Jackson, the linebacker from Fresno State, Kobe Prentice, the wide receiver from Alabama. So if you guys haven't caught that yet, be sure to check that out in yesterday's episode, a little bit of it in Monday's episode as well. But one of the other guys that was on campus during that Monday visit was Devin Turner, the safety from Northwestern, which I can practically see from my window if I looked hard enough. He has committed to the Bears. And this is sneaky, probably my favorite pickup in the portal so far. I've genuinely liked all of them because we always love a portal pickup. We very rarely are negative about a portal pickup. I will readily admit that, but I'm real excited about Devin Turner. This is a guy who has come on big time, really the last 2 seasons, and was performing at an all Big Ten caliber and was probably Northwestern's best defensive back or best defensive player, full stop, last year. He was doing it in pass coverage big time at the safety position. He was a ball hawk, created a couple of turnovers. He is going to fit right in with this Baylor defense, and I would be pretty surprised if he doesn't slot right in as a starting safety for this team next year, which graduates a few. Real excited about adding him and some bolstering that defense, because I think we were, kind of iffy on what this defense is going to look like coming into this season, 2024. I mean, not next year, which is what we're looking at next. And we never really got a great resolution, right? Like, even at the end of the season when Baylor was winning games, the defense got better, but it did not get stout by any means. They finally forced some turnovers those last 2 weeks, which was something that was really bugging me for the first 10 weeks of the season was they didn't force turnovers, just like they didn't last year nor the year before. I would love Baylor to get back to that kind of take 3 mentality that Joey Maguire made famous with the Bears. I think Devin Turner will certainly help in that. The other 2 guys that they have added since our last report have both been on the offensive side. Joe Crocker, the offensive lineman from Louisville. That was one that was a pretty quick turnaround. I think he visited on Tuesday, committed on Tuesday. We'll see what that does with Ty Buchanan, but Crocker is another one that bolstered that offensive line, which was obviously so impressive this past season. It kind of gets lost in the shuffle with the emergence of sort of Robertson and Josh Cameron and Bryson Washington. But that offensive line was terrific down the stretch, just terrific. And they have a great position that they're in right now where they're going to be able to keep some of those guys that played big time snaps this year, guys like Sidney Fugar. And you bring in someone like Joe Crocker and potentially even a Ty Buchanan on the interior into the fold for 2025 and just keep this thing rolling, because it was a bad offensive line in 23. There were some young guys on there, but you also had both Barrington brothers, and it was a mess. And this year you obviously saw with Mason Miller, the new offensive line coach, how long it kind of took for them to hit their stride. And then they did, much like the offense in general under Spavital. It took a couple weeks. Now you add to that in a guy like Crocker. And for Spavital's group, that air raid offense, you add another receiver. This was arguably the biggest / sexiest need for the Bears this year was wide receiver. I would say the biggest need at a sexy position was wide receiver with all that you're losing there. And one of the guys we did not talk about enough, or to be fair, I did not talk about enough during this past season, was Ashton Hawkins, the transfer from Texas State, and what he brought to this team. He ends up being the second leading receiver on the team. And he was a threat the whole season. It's not like he was missing out on games. He would go missing for a time. No, 41 receptions, 512 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Second leading receiver on the team. He was third in touchdowns scored. Like, he was a legit threat for this team throughout the season. And he kind of flew under the radar a little bit, but you got a kind of undersized speedster from Texas State. So why not go to that well again? Cole Wilson, 5'9", 170, Katy native, coming from the Texas State Bobcats. Same thing, same profile, undersized, speedster, deep threat. All those things that were realized by Ashton Hawkins this season are all things that Cole Wilson can bring to you as well. I really like the 2 receivers they've brought in between Wilson and Kobe Prentice. They are both guys who can be deep threats who aren't that big. You know, they're not that prototypical X receiver, 6'3", going to go up and get everything. You know, they're both under 6 feet and they can play in the slot. It's like you're replacing Ashton Hawkins and Monterey Baldwin with those 2 guys right there. And with Josh Cameron on the outside, we'll see who else emerges on the outside. I think Jaden Porter will probably be a slot guy. Micah Gifford's been practicing with the defense. So you probably do need another guy on the outside, and whether that's through the portal or they know of someone within the program right now that can help. But don't be surprised if the Bears continue to chip away at that at the portal, that position, outside receiver. And obviously a big shout out goes to this entire coaching staff. You know, we shout out Keenan Hall all the time, as we should. He's kind of the lead recruiter and associate head coach for this Baylor team. But even Keenan Hall put out there on Twitter on Tuesday night, our associate AD player development, Aaron Hunt, is killing the portal. One of the best recruiters I've ever had the pleasure to collab with. Give the man his flowers. And we should. I mean, Aaron Hunt has been on the forefront, on the front lines of this recruiting, both through the portal and through high school for a year and a half now. And it's coincided with the Bears being very successful in both those areas, both getting those guys out of the portal and really upping their game for high school recruits, specifically Texas high school recruits. So it's not just Keenan Hall, although he's played a big part in this. Aaron Hunt deserves those flowers as well. And long may the gifts of the Dancing Bear continue, because they're coming thick and fast this time of year. And again, it's pretty rare that you'll find an analyst or commentator saying that their team has made some bad portal pickups, but I just can't help but love the business that Baylor's doing in the portal right now. And it is business. Ask Texas Tech. It's business. But really right now in the Big 12, it's Tech and Baylor who are bringing in the recruits. Obviously, Tech's done a tremendous job. They've brought in a ton, and I think that was partially because they had a pretty small freshman class this year. But Baylor's right up there too. And of course, the end of this season's been pretty fun as well. But we still are looking for the answers for what exactly turned this season around. Might have got those answers yesterday. Let's tell you what that was on Locked On Baylor. This episode, of course, which is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You're going to get started with $150 in those bonus bets if or when you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks, which is once again back with the Locked On Podcast Network. Make your holidays bigger and brighter with PrizePicks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. You can now win up to 100 or 1,000 times your money on PrizePicks just now because of the holiday season, I should say. PrizePicks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas. All right, you guys are sitting down, you're watching all the games anyway. Why not play daily fantasy sports? Win you some money. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's so good, I'm going to say it again. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDON, COLLEGE, to get $50 instantly after you play that first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. It's Locked On Baylor. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day, part of that Locked On Podcast Network. For those of you watching on YouTube, be sure to like the video if you like the video. And those of you listening, keep listening. Tweet at us at Locked On Baylor. We'd love to hear from you. One of the things that I have kind of toyed around with for the last 2 months of like a segment to do on the pod or an episode of the pod is like trying to find out what exactly this turnaround was born out of. How do you go from 2-4 to 6-6? Like there's something there. There's obviously plenty of answers, right? Sawyer Robertson finding his footing, this offensive line finding their game, Bryson Washington getting healthy. There's quite a few things you can point to. But typically, when you're at 2-4, coming off a 3-9 season, and as low as it felt for us as fans, and it had to have felt for those players in early October, like there has to be something galvanizing there, and we hadn't heard it from players or Dave Aranda, or I was asking any guest on this show, like, where is this coming from? Like, what happened here? Well, Sawyer Robertson, you might have noticed something a little bit more noticeable, I guess, in the uniform reveal or the reveal of the new helmets, if you watched that video. And Sawyer Robertson commented on it, and he gave us the best answer we've had so far on what has turned the Bears from 2-4 to 8-4 heading into the bowl game.
So the story behind this is after the Iowa State game, we were 2-4, and I just did it kind of like as a joke. Came out here during the bye week, and I had a really good day. So I was like, dang, like, okay, like we'll see where this goes. And told myself I was going to shave it once we lost, and we still haven't lost. So here we are, 8 weeks later, 6 wins later. 2 bye weeks. So
will this carry into 2025?
We'll see.
All right.
We'll see.
Just like we all had at the beginning of the season, Sawyer Robertson's muzzy is going to turn the Baylor Bears football program around and make him a Heisman candidate for next year. I mean, like, how is there, like, how do you not love everything about Sawyer Robertson, man? Like, I mean, seriously, he's got this just kick-ass muzzy now. He's twirling it, and during that media availability, he's kind of, doing this. He's patting it down. He's making sure it looks good, and always deferring to his teammates. Always, coming in with that West Texas bravado, and it's a soft-spoken bravado. Those from West Texas will know. I only spent some time out there. But he comes in with that thick, West Texas country boy accent. He's talking about how great his teammates are, how much he loves playing for Baylor. And, oh, yeah, I started growing out this muzzy 2 months ago, and it's turned around our entire season. And I throw a bunch of touchdowns and we score a ton of points. Like, that's Sawyer Robertson all right there, man. Like, what a revelation it has been to have him as the starting quarterback. I cannot believe that we went into this season with not only Sawyer Robertson not being the starting quarterback, but no real push for him outside the program to be the starting quarterback. We always hear about that. Like, the backup QB is always the most popular player in town. And it goes back to, for me, for Baylor, it goes back to the end of 2019 and into 2020. We all wanted Jacob Zeno after what he did in the Big 12 championship game. Well, you didn't get him. You got another year of Charlie Brewer. Then it was Zeno again. Zeno. Every time Brewer had a bad game. And then the next year, it was Gary Bohannon. You didn't even get Zeno then. Then 22, Shapen stunk for a stretch. And it's like, time for Kyron Drones. Don't let Kyron Drones leave. Can we get Kyron Drones some snaps here? And then Kyron Drones leaves. And this year, it was finally like, all right, DeQuan Finn is going to be our starter. And we love that. We are so happy for that. Like, let's do this thing. We're excited about a new quarterback who is going to be the starter. We're not going to beg for the backup to be in. And then when the backup has to come in, he has one of the best seasons that a Baylor quarterback's had in a while. And he becomes the most beloved player on the team. And there's stiff competition for most beloved player on the team, by the way. Again, this is a very fun team to root for. But Sawyer Robertson grows out the mustache, and the rest is history. So there you go, folks. You want to know how you go from 2-4 to 8-4 and the possibility of 9-4? Just have your charismatic starting quarterback grow out a mustache and give coolers to every one of his teammates. And again, throw a bunch of touchdowns, score a ton of points, and win like all the football games. Oh, man, Baylor's in such a good spot. And in that same media availability, Matt Jones said he wished he could come back to Baylor another year. He says Baylor's going to be in the Big 12 championship next year. He actually said Baylor's going to be in the Big 12 next year, which they definitely will be. But we got confirmation from the reporters that he meant the Big 12 championship game next year. And as you heard from Sawyer, if that mustache comes in 2025, stays there, which he said it could be, then I don't know where else they would be on the first Saturday in December, but the Big 12 championship game in Arlington, Texas. It's worked so far. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Is this what really turned around Baylor's season? Drop that down in the comments. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to Locked On Baylor. That helps out the channel a ton. And you can ring that notification bell to get notified every time we're dropping a video every weekday, especially during this portal and bowl season. It's going to be coming thick and fast. Emergency episodes, separate segments, all that you can hope for, you can find through ringing that notification bell, liking, and subscribing. It also really helps out the channel. And let me know what you think about this Walker White thing and how Baylor is doing in the portal so far. Please do let me know. Drop that down in the comments below or tweet at us at Locked On Baylor. Tomorrow, we're going to talk, obviously, some more portal because I'm sure we'll have some more news for you by then. And, of course, some LSU stuff as well. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We will see you tomorrow on your favorite show, Locked On